Hey guys, Kid here of Burn 1 with the Shadowverse Evolved channel, bringing you another Day 1 Set 2 deck profile. This one, obviously, Heavenly Aegis Control. This is a list people have been anticipating being Tier 1, and probably one of the best control lists to be playing in Set 2. It has a very clear win condition, and a lot of tools to slow down your opponent in a very heavy aggro meta, making this a very solid control list, and as long as you get to like turn 9 or 10, you usually win the game. So let's just jump right into the deck profile. Alright, so here's the list. It's pretty straightforward once you take a look at it, but we'll go ahead and break it down. Obviously, we're anticipating a pretty heavily aggro-centric meta next set. Aggro Abyss is like probably one of the best decks to be playing, along with a Swordcraft as well, that has very huge damage output. So having either cheap followers that can slow the game down or cheap wards to drop out are just very solid in this meta. So 3 of Radiance Angel, we play 1 of the Evo because the Evo is so good. If you're not familiar with how good this is, you must be new to the game. So the fact that you get a play Radiance Angel on 1, turn 2 Evo, usually destroy their follower that they played that turn, and then engage this to ward up, and then cycle this from a draw 1 when it does hit when the last word goes off hitting the cemetery. Is a very good card. I think this is very apparent at this point. 3 of Prism Priestess. So we're not very much around the amulet archetype anymore, but amulets are still very powerful in this craft. So we use Prism Priestess to get our 1 of Guardian Sun if we're planning to set up a Guardian Sun plus a Heavenly Aegis play and turn 9 or so. Otherwise, we can grab things like Sacred Plea, our 1 of Hair of Illusion, which helps us in the mirror match very much. Or we can search out in Statured Seraph, which is a very solid card to be looking for because it is one of our 1-ofs. That's very powerful, especially if you're able to find a gap turn to just drop this on the board. It kind of puts your opponent on a clock before they just basically don't get a chance to actually end the game against you. Obviously 3 of, because still searching is very good, still very good turn 1, turn 2 play, especially going second, very powerful. Next we have Unicorn Dancer. This card is surprisingly very powerful due to the nature of the next set being very aggro-centric, depending on your meta. Aggro Abyss is something we have to be very aware of. So Unicorn Dancer is very solid because this card alone is a 2/2 for 2 that has the effect that a strike you heal 2 to your leader. But what's really good is that we play 1 of the Evo, making it a 3/3, which makes it a little bit better as a 2-drop. But the big thing here is that a lot of times we can either trade this off, heal 2 to get 2 back, and immediately remove a low-cost follower against the aggro matchups. In some cases, we get a value trade too, and in those cases, they still have to answer this 3/1, which is usually what it sits at after we value trade with it. But if they don't, we get to clear something else and then heal another 2 again. So this is usually a prime target for our opponent to remove as soon as possible. Generally, we just train this for a 1-for-1 a lot of times with using the Evo. Just to get the heal 2, because we're trying to heal a little bit increments at a time just to prolong the game long enough for us to go off on our Aegis turn. Jeanne d'Arc as a 3 of here, and we go ahead and play 2 of the Evo. If you've played in set 1, we already know this is a very good tool to control the board. It's like our huge board wipe on 4. We can deal 2 to everything, so things that go very low to the ground but very wide just get blown out by this card. And then if we're able to on turn 5 with an Evo point, or turn 6, you can just drop this in the same turn and you're good to go. Power up things like Bellringer to sit behind, or even our next card here, which is Radiance Angel. This is kind of replaces our Guardian Nun. I would say it's a slight upgrade from Guardian Nun. The only difference is going second, you can't play Guardian. You won't be able to have the same play of Guardian Nun Evo point to Evo it. But this one doesn't rely on you having an amulet on the board, and since we've moved away from the amulet strategy, this is a very good consistency card that also helps slow down the game for us. So it's 3/4, meaning it avoids most removal tools that don't just straight up removing it. But the big thing about this is that it has Fanfare, draw a card on play, and we play 2 of the Evo form, which is on evolve you heal 2. This is another way for us to slowly heal a little bit of that early game damage we do take in the beginning of the game, and then it's still a respectable 4/5, just like Guardian Nun, and it is a ward. Very solid, very good card. This is the big boss monster of the deck. This is our main game plan to win all our games. Is we want to drop Heavenly Aegis as early as possible. It has the effect that you can pay 2 to evo it, but there are times where you could end up using that effect if the game goes a little bit longer than anticipated, because you might have to find the exact moment to play this card along with like the Guardian Sun to give this ward, so it's harder for your opponent to like actually end the game through followers that next turn. But a lot of times too, you will be using the secondary effect, which is an alternate way to evo this card is by discarding 3 cards from your hand. You would think that's a very heavy cost, but actually a lot of times you can easily fill this cost and still keep the cards that you need to win the game, in your hand. Essentially, there are a lot of games where I ended up with like 6 cards still on the turn. I'm playing Heavenly Aegis, which made it very easy for me to evo it with no play points on like turn 8 or 9. So what makes this follower so scary and like the big boss monster of the deck is that it has aura, so it can't be targeted. It has the effect that this follower cannot be destroyed by card effects, which is very important. A very important line of text here, because it lets you make plays like Heavenly Aegis followed up next turn by Themis Decree. So it doesn't matter what they play on the board, because you get to destroy everything on the board, but this doesn't get removed because it has the effect that it can't be destroyed by card effects, and this is obviously a card effect. So it can clear the way, and you can start swinging in for 8 or more damage against your opponent, which is very good. So we do play 2 of the Evo form, which I didn't get to go over. It's a 10/10 follower, which is insane. It still has aura. It still has the effect that this follower cannot be destroyed by card effects. And then on evolve, this follower takes no damage until the start of your next main phase, which means if we combo with Guardian Sun from set 1, which gives one of our followers ward, and after evoing this, it means that this card becomes basically cannot be removed that turn it's played. It protects your life total from all enemy followers unless there is a way for them to get around ward. So a very bad matchup, for example, is like Forest Control, because if we don't end the game before Forest gets to pop off with like a Rose Queen and things like that, we can get burned out of the game. We do have ways around it a little bit, but it's not very consistent. But that's one of the slight bad matchups for Heavenly Aegis. But still, it has such good matchups and everything else that you just kind of accept the bad matchup in that case. So this is a 10/10, which is insane. I'll just go ahead and talk about Guardian Sun right now. So the combo usually is on like turn 9. We play Aegis, we evo Aegis by discarding 3, and then we play a Guardian Sun to give it ward. And then the following turn after that, you can play 2 play points to crack Guardian Sun to give it +2/+2. So you start swinging in for 12 damage immediately off of your Heavenly Aegis Evo, which is very powerful. One of the big things about that, about this deck in general too, is like we can kind of chip away and get to the point of our opponent taking just enough damage to usually get in the game off of 1 swing of Heavenly Aegis. But either way, you after 1 swing of Heavenly Aegis, usually you're gonna be winning that game anyway, because 1, they still have to deal with the Heavenly Aegis on the board. It doesn't have aura. They have to like swing into it with their followers if they have any left, but usually they don't, because you follow up things with like Themis Decree to just wipe the board, so they don't really have any options to like really combat this. But there are games where you can instantly end this on a Heavenly Aegis Evo, but most games you'll probably have them down to 16 or so, swing in with this and then pass turn, and then they just have no way to stop you from there, and the game's basically over. So now we're going to talk about a lot of the control stuff going on in this list. So 3 of Angelic Snipe, it's one of the premier 1-drop removal spells. If you've played in set 1 with a lot of control lists, a lot of lists do like playing Angelic Snipe because it's a cheap 1 cost to remove a lot of the 2 defense followers, which is really, really good. It gives us something to do with our leftover Evo points too, or set up like ways for certain followers to trade into other bigger followers, which is really good. Also, like I've been saying, set 2 is going to be very aggro centric because of aggro Abyss, which is something that we need to be worried about. And a lot of their really powerful followers only have 2 health. So Angelic Snipe becomes like a premium removal tool in set 2, especially for this list. We play 2 Blackened Scriptures. This is our way to handle the sword matchup. So if you've seen sword lists, they all play Leonidas. Leonidas is a very powerful follower because it generates a amulet on board afterwards that buffs everything else. But the thing about Leonidas, which makes Blackened Scripture such a good card to have in this list, is that whenever Leonidas evos, it deals 5 damage to itself and another follower. And what happens there is it puts it at 2 life total, which means Blackened Scripture can banish it away when it attacks to try to remove itself. Because a lot of the times, people will evo Leonidas and then try to swing into some low power follower just so that they can remove each other. Because the last word of Leonidas creates Leonidas' banner. So this is a great way to remove Leonidas without having to deal with the banner afterwards. And even if they do get the banner through, you'll see coming up we do play 3 executions to deal with those scenarios. But we're just playing all the very good control tools here. Next, this is another very powerful spell, neutral spell, that you're going to want multiple copies of when you're opening up set 2. We're playing 3 of Surefire Bullet. What's so good about this is that it's 2 play points to destroy any non-evolved follower that has 3 health because it deals 3 damage. But if you're dealing with an evo follower, which is a lot of other 3-cost cards and maybe even some 4-cost cards, this deals 4 damage to those evolved followers. It removes a lot of things that people have to think about a lot more. If people have Surefire Bullet, that you know, like Dragon Warrior isn't always like able to 2 for 1 because you can always just pop Surefire Bullet or something like that against it, which is very good. We play 3 of, obviously it's another very cheap premium removal tool moving forward. If you played set 1, Acolyte's Light, banish a card, heal 2. Banishing is very powerful, removes any last word effects, so against Leonidas and stuff like that, very strong card. Yeah, nothing. What can I say? Next set, we're going to have amulets that we want to remove, mostly in the Swordcraft matchups. And otherwise, Execution is just like another premium removal that just destroys something on the field immediately. Play a 3 of because there are a lot of Swordcraft and stuff like that. There's always a lot of very good targets for this, even if it's just followers. So, you know, playing the full 6 4-cost removal spells in this list is very good because the package is just that good. And Execution is such a good card anyway. We play 3 Themis Decree. This is our turn 5 board wipe, along with comboing with Heavenly Aegis itself, with its can't be destroyed by card effects, which means we can play this once we have Heavenly Aegis out and it's lived a turn to just remove the board and then start swinging in with Heavenly Aegis. This is a 3 of is very important because sometimes we do play one early just to equalize the board state, and then we still need another one later in the game for our Heavenly Aegis turn. This is a 1 of Hair of Illusion. So this card is a 1 of because in the mirror match, the only way to remove Heavenly Aegis is to banish everything on the board. This is the card that does it. So in the mirror match, this is the quote unquote great equalizer here that people will have to play around at some point. And sometimes, you know, you just like search this early out in the game and your opponent's like, great, now anytime I Heavenly Aegis and we hit turn 10, Hair of Illusion can just like clear the board, and we had to start this dance all over again. 1 of Guardian Sun. This is from set 1 as well. Like I said earlier, it's the combo we use with Heavenly Aegis. We don't necessarily need more than 1 because we only need 1 turn of like Heavenly Aegis blocking all the damage that any followers would deal to us directly. So a lot of times you'll either naturally draw into this or you'll switch it out with a Prism Priestess, not Prism Priestess. But we'll use that combo it with Heavenly Aegis. It's basically the only way we use this card. So you don't really need to search this out until we're getting to the point of we're going to combo off with Heavenly Aegis, because this is a dead card in your hand a lot of the time. 3 of Sacred Plea. This is how we draw more cards into this. It's just a good amulet. What can I say? If you've played Haven in set 1, you know this is premium draw tool. Also something else for us to search out with Prism Priestess when need be. There's a lot of times where you'll just play this onto board because you have nothing else to do, and you won't crack it immediately, but you'll wait until you have a elapsed turn to pop this amulet to just draw 2 or draw 1 sometimes even. Finally, we play one of Enstatured Seraph. This card is one of the weirdest insane cards I've played with so far in in set 2. So this card not only puts a timer on your opponent of like being able to win the game, especially against aggro. In the mirror, this is very powerful too because of the effect. So I'll just go ahead and read this amulet. It's a 6-cost amulet. This card cannot be destroyed by card effects. At the start of your end phase, put a prayer counter on this card. Then, if this card has 4 or more prayer counters, put it into your cemetery, give your leader plus 10 health, and then search your deck for up to 2 cards and put them into your EX area, and then those cards cost 0 play points. Moving forward. So there are plays where, like, on turn 6, if your opponent lets you just drop this out, you can play this on 6 immediately. When you hit turn 10, this will pop off. Or turn 9, right? 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, at the end of turn 9, this will pop off, meaning next turn you could do things like search out Heavenly Aegis from your deck, put it there along with like a control spell like Acolyte's Light, or even Themis Decree for the combo, or even search out Guardian Sun, which doesn't seem like a good idea, but I mean, it's an option, right? What's very good about this is that it can do any card. So you like I said, you can get Acolyte's Light, you can get the Executions, you can get all your quick spell removal cards out as well to protect yourself, and then set up for the next turn Heavenly Aegis Evo on top of Guardian Sun and so forth. Healing 10, if this pops off against an aggro player and you heal 10, unless they're playing like Azazel or whatever his name is to set your life to 10, they've lost the game. It's just come to that. There are some cases where like you play against Sword or something, and they can deal like 18 damage to you in one turn if you're not careful and don't play around certain things. But still, like, I had a game where I went from 8, went all the way down to 8 after like healing a lot early on with unicorns and Acolyte's Lights and things like that. And then I went down to 8, popped this, went up to 18, and technically I still could have lost against the Sword player if, I didn't search out things like Acolyte's Light or Execution to protect my Heavenly Aegis that was already out on the board, and also to protect my life total, because even though you think 18 is a lot, Sword has ways to deal 18 like immediately if you give them a turn to just do whatever they want. But yeah, that's basically the deck. This is a very powerful control deck. If you like playing control, this is worth taking a look at. This version doesn't have as many like control tools as far as like followers go. This is a lot more of like, you do nothing all game. You're probably not going to do that much damage to your opponent until turn 9 or 10 comes around, and then that's when the deck does pop off. If you get in there for like 8 points of damage and they never heal, that's insane to me, because at that point you just immediately die to the combo of Heavenly Aegis plus Guardian Sun into Themis Decree, pop Guardian Sun, 12 face damage. That is very rough for people to deal with. This is going to be one of the best decks in the format, especially if you like control. This is definitely a tier 1 deck, and I think everyone has to be aware of this deck moving forward if you plan to win any regionals, win any locals and stuff like that. Or if you're the single person that plays Haven in your locals, this is going to be an amazingly fun deck for you, and you're going to just destroy everyone for quite a while until they get used to playing around in this deck. One of the big things about this deck is if you can kind of like pressure really hard early, and then you can kill out with storm followers or burn damage. That's one of the big weaknesses of this list, is that it doesn't do well into like a lot of storm followers. It doesn't do too well early game all the time. You kind of have to draw into the right things, and then if you're able to go wide early and push a lot of damage and then end it out with, like I said, storm or burn is really, really good. Forest is another craft that's going to be really powerful into this type of deck. So if your locals become nothing but like Heavenly Aegis decks, look into Forest craft, look into the burn decks. Possibly even Dirt will be a really good tool deck into this deck. I haven't seen that matchup yet myself, or I haven't tested it at least. But any decks that can just do burn damage and ignore the board basically is going to be very powerful into this matchup, or at least have a slight edge. With that being said, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe, all that. Let us know about how you're going to dominate everyone with Heavenly Aegis control at your local level. Other than that, we'll hope to see you in the next videos.